Hello everyone. Here in this presentation I will be discussing about unit 6, that is PLC and MEMS. That is PLC is programmable logic controller and micro electromechanical systems. It is from the subject mechatronics. It is for electrical and electronics students of 6th sem. So let's begin. First we will see the contents. First we will be discussing about programmable logic controllers, their definition, applications and all. The next, basic structure or the internal architecture of a PLC system. The next, advantages, disadvantages and applications of PLC. Then ladder diagram. Then micro electromechanical systems. Then advantages and applications of MEMS. Then manufacturing process of MEMS. The next, MEMS accelerometer, that is examples. The next, smart sensor. Okay, at last. Then first we will be seeing what is this programmable logic controllers. So here the programmable logic controller, it is nothing but it is the digital electronics device that is used to for programmable. It will be using programmable memory to store instruction and to implement the functions such as logic sequencing, timing, counting and arithmetic in order to control machines and process them. Okay, so that is your programmable logic controller. It will be having a memory. In that memory we will be storing the program. In that program we will be using for functions such as logic sequencing, timing, counting and arithmetic in order to control machines and process them. The next one, features of PLC. What are the features? They are compact in size. Then PLC can be easily programmed. Reprogramming is very easy. It gives noiseless operation, more reliable, and it is of low maintenance cost. Then interfacing of computer is possible here. Then inbuilt timers and counters and registers are there. Then PLC can store data and programs over here. Then next, basic architecture we will be seeing. So here you can see the diagram over here of the basic architecture of the, that is internal architecture of a PLC. So here what are the main blocks in this? It will be central processing unit, then buses and input output unit. So in central processing, what is central processing unit? It is nothing but it will be controlling and processing all the operations of the PLC. Okay, it will be having what all it will be having. It will be consisting of arithmetic and logic unit in that. So arithmetic and logic unit, what it will do, it will perform all the arithmetic and logical operation. That the logic operation include and, or, exclusive, or, those all. The next one, control unit. So control unit, what it will be doing, it is used to control the timing of the operation. The processor function under a permanent supervisory operating system that directs the overall operation from data input and output to execution of user program. Okay, the next one is memory unit. So memory unit is what? It will be storing the programs data. Okay, so the sequence of instruction to be executed programs are stored in the memory unit. So during entering and editing, including debugging, the program will be stored in RAM. Okay, the next, here for network program PLC, the final PLC program is downloaded into a special reprogrammable, that is ROM. It will be there. Memory can be, here memory can be either volatile or non-volatile. So what is volatile? Volatile is nothing but it is the memory or temporary memory or application memory, that is user memory. So here in volatile memory the data will be lost. Okay, so here whenever the power goes off, the data will be gone. But in non-volatile memory, what it will be, it is the permanent memory. Even if the power supply goes off, the data will be there in that. Then different types of ROMs are mass program ROM, PROM, EPROM and double EPROM. Okay, the next one, buses. You can see over there, buses are there: data bus, input output system bus, address bus, control bus. Okay, so what are those? They are set of parallel lines that provide communication between various devices of system. Okay, So they will be used for transmission media. The next first one in that we will be studying data bus. So data bus contains 8, 16 or 32 parallel signal lines for sending data between the various devices of a system. So it will be sending data. So here the 8-bit microprocessor will be having an internal data bus which can handle 8-bit numbers. So here many devices in a system will have their outputs connected to the data bus, but only one device will be having its output enabled at a time. So only at a time only one will be working over here. The next one, address bus. The address bus contains 16, 20, 24 or 32 parallel signal lines to carry the address of the memory location for accessing stored data to find out the address. So address bus will be related to the addresses. Okay. Then next one, control bus. So the control bus contains 4 to 10 parallel signal lines to carry what? Signals used by the CPU that are related to internal control actions. So typical control signals are memory read, they are memory write, then input output read and input output write. Okay. Then last, that is your input output system bus, that will be related to what? Either to communicate, it will be therefore to communicate the inputs or to communicate the outputs. That is the communication between input output ports and input output units. That is the input output system bus will be doing. Then next, last, what it is? Input output units. So these input output units, they are nothing but interface between the system and outside over there. Okay, allowing for connections to be made through input output channels to your device. Programs are entered from a program panel through input output unit. Okay. The next one, advantages. So what are the advantages, disadvantages and applications of PLC? So first advantage of PLC is what? They have enhanced reliability. Okay. So here the next, easy in logic modification. Then interactive operator interface is there. Then online repair facility will be there. Input output forcing through software. Online monitoring of user logics is there. Okay, and many more. The next one is disadvantages of PLC. What are the disadvantages? There is too much work required in connecting wires. There is difficulty which changes or replacements. It always difficult to find errors here. Okay, when a problem occurs, the whatever the repair time will be, what hold up time is indefinite, means how much time is required that we don't know during the when repairs comes. The next one, applications of PLC, where they are used. So they are used in material handling, power station plant, conveyor station system, pick and place robot, then pump control, traffic light system and many more. Okay, the next one we will be seeing about the ladder diagram. So PLC are programmed using what? Ladder diagram technique. So here it is nothing but a special standard schematic representation of physical components it is. Okay, and it is a way of connection made between them is called a ladder diagram. So here a special standard schematic representation of physical components arranged. So the physical components, they will be arranged in a manner here. A ladder diagram, what it will be consisting of? It will be consisting of two vertical lines called as the power layer, that is power rails. You can see the two vertical lines, it is left power rail and right power rail. Okay, in between that two vertical line, you can see in the diagram, there will be what? Input output devices will be connected between them. So that horizontal lines between the two vertical lines is known as rungs. So you can see over the rung 1, rung 2, rung 3, rung 4. So there will be two vertical lines. That two vertical lines, where from there it will be called as left power rail and right power rail. In between that, the input output devices will be placed. Okay, and how they will be operating, you can see over there. From left power rail, it will be you have to connect the device to the right power rail. Again it will go to the left power rail to right power, like that. From left to right it will be done. Okay, so here what are the rules that will be followed over here? The vertical lines of the diagram represent the power rails and the horizontal lines represent the rungs. Each rung on the ladder defines one operation in the control process. A ladder diagram must read from left to right, as I told. That is, and from top to bottom. When the scanning of the first rung is completed, then the second rung starts from left to right. Each rung must start with an input and must end with an output. So each rung in between that it will be from left, it will be input, and right it will be, at last it will be your output. Each rung must have more than one input, but only what output will be only one. Okay. Then the input must always locate at the rung left and the output at the right hand device. So here these will be the rules. Okay. Circuits are connected between these two vertical lines. Okay. Then next we will be seeing about MEMS. What is this MEMS? So MEMS is nothing but your micro electromechanical systems. Okay. So before that, the logic gates and all those are there, no, the representation that I have discussed in separate video. So next, what it is, your micro electromechanical systems. So these are nothing but they are the integrate mechanical and electronic components and have features sizes ranging from micrometers to millimeters. So they are fabricated using methods similar to those used to construct integrated circuits. So how ICs are built, no, same way these are also built with using those materials. So what is this micro electromechanical system? Micro electromechanical systems are integrated device or systems on a micro scale that combine electrical and mechanical components together. So electro and mechanical components both together are there in this. Okay, we employing IC batch fabrication, which can sense, control and activate mechanical process to achieve complicated functions or informatics. So you can see over there the block diagram of MEMS. So what all it consists of? It consists of input signals, then MEMS package and output signals. So input signals, what are those? That is, these are the signals which are given to the MEMS package from various sources or systems such as electrical, mechanical, chemical, optical and so on. The next one, the center part, that is MEMS package. What all it will be? It is a semiconductor chip, that is integrated circuit, which can be fabricated by suitable micro matching techniques. It consists of microsensors, then micro actuators, then and a signal transduction unit. The signal transduction unit is provided for conditioning the generated signal, means processing of the signal. Then transduction process include amplification, filtration and signal conversion. And then next, output signals are there. These are the signals interfaced with the system to be controlled or monitored. Due to this monolithic integration of sensors, actuators and signal transduction units, closed loop systems can be easily developed. So these will be all closed loop systems. Then next, advantages of your MEMS. They are very small in size, mass and volume. They will use very low power. Okay. Then they are of low cost, easy to integrate into the system and small thermal constant. Then applications of MEMS. Automotive domain, that is in automobiles, industry. Then consumer domain, that is electrical and electronics. Then next, industrial domain, military and biotechnology. So in automotive domain, where it will be used in airbag systems, vehicle security systems, inertial brake lights, headlight leveling, rollover detection, automatic door locks, active suspensions. Then in consumer domain, where all it will be used, appliances, then sport training devices, in computer peripherals, car and personal navigation devices and active subwoofers. Then in industrial domain, here it will be used in earthquake detection and gas shutoff. Then machine health, then shock and tilt sensing. Then in military, where it will be used, tanks, planes, equipments for soldiers. In biotechnology, where it will be used, polynomous chain reaction, micro machine scanning tunneling microscopes, then biochips for detection of hazardous chemicals, then microsystems for high throughput drug screening and selection. So like this they will be used. Okay, the applications those are. The next one, manufacturing process of MEMS. So here the technique, this is nothing but the technique used for manufacturing of the MEMS and microsystem components like microsensors, microactuators is called as micro machining or micro manufacturing. So there are three techniques: bulk micro machine, surface micro machine and Liga process. Okay, in that first one, bulk micro machine. Here in this method we use production of microsensors and accelerometers. So here in bulk micro machine involves the removal of part of the bulk substrate. It is a subtractive process, means we will be removing it. Okay, here it uses wet anisotropic etching or dry etching method such as reactive ion etching or create large pit growths and channels. So here material typically used for wet etching include silicon and quartz, while dry etching is typically used with silicon, metals, plastics and ceramics. Okay, so in dry etching the substrate material is removed by gaseous etchants without using wet chemicals or resin. So we use here gases in dry etching. Okay, then here we will be using isotropic etching. In this type the substrate is etched uniformly in all the direction in isotropic etching. Okay, then anisotropic etching, it will be in this technique the substrate material is etched as faster in preferred direction. So first isotropic, what in all direction it will be etched, here it will be etched only in preferred directions. Okay, then next one we will be seeing about surface micro machining. So here in surface micro machining involves processing above the substrate it will be. Okay, mainly using it is a foundation layer on which to build. Then here material is added to the substrate in the form of layers of thin films on the surface of the substrate. So here material will be added in the form of layers. Okay, then these layers can either be structural layers or acts as spacers layers. Later they can be removed when they are known as sacrificial layers. Okay, here these layers are deposited and subsequently dry etched in sequence with sacrificial material being finally wet etched away to release the final structure. Then each additional layer is accompanied by an increasing layer of complexity. So by like this, here this surface micro machine you will be done. You can see over there in the diagram. First what they will be doing, deposit and pattern oxide, means layers they will be deposit. Then next what they have done, then deposit and pattern polysilicon is deposited on top of that. Then sacrificial etching will be done. Then we are removing it. That is anchor, cantilever. But the main thing, it will be there, silicon substrate will be there. On top of that the other layers will be coming. Okay. The next one is Liga. So Liga, it is an important tooling and replication method for high aspect ratio microstructures. Then this technique employs X-ray radiation to expose thick acrylic resist of PMMA under a lithographic mask. The exposed areas are chemically dissolved over here. Okay, then and in areas where the material is removed, metal is electroformed, thereby defining tool insert for the succeeding modeling steps. Then Liga is capable of creating very finely defined microstructures. So the microstructures will be of very small size, that is 1000 micrometer high. So Liga is limited by the need to have access to an X-ray synchrotron facility. Okay. In this particular technique, such as S-Liga enabled to production of MEMS components, which much more lower manufacturing infrastructures. Okay, so first one we will be seeing. Next one is MEMS accelerometer. So What is this accelerometer? It is an electromechanical device that is used to measure acceleration and force producing it. Okay, for it is used to measure the acceleration and force producing it. Many types of accelerometers are available in the market. Which are those? There will be many types. Okay, so the next one, they can be divided according to the force that is to be measured. Even today, one of the most commonly used is piezoelectric accelerometer, but that piezoelectric will be bulky and cannot be used for all the operations. So the smaller, highly functional device, that will be your MEMS accelerometer. Okay, though the first of its kind was developed 25 years ago, but this, due to its small size and robust sensing features, they are further developed and obtained in multi-axis sensing. So how this MEMS accelerometer will be working, we will see over here. So the capacitive MEMS accelerometer is famous for its high sensitivity and accuracy and at high temperatures. Okay, you can see over the diagram what all is there. First, the base structure on top and down, then movable plates will be there, and proof mass movable microstructures. So I can tell you this accelerometer, you can see on the digital meters now your vehicle acceleration when you do that it is. Okay, so here the devices does not change values depending on the base materials used and depends only on the capacitive value that occurs during the change in distance between the plates. So whatever the capacitive value will be occurring during the change in the position of the plates, that it will be measuring. Okay, if the two plates are kept parallel to each other and are separated by a distance d, and E is the permittivity of the separating material, then the capacitance produced we can be written as C0 is equal to E0 divided by E0 into EA divided by D. Okay, that is nothing but EA divided by D. So A is nothing but your area of electrodes. So a change in the value of E, A or D will help in finding the change in the capacitance over here. Okay, then accelerometer values mainly depends on the change of values of D or A. So it can also be called as a simple one axis accelerometer that you can see in the diagram. Okay, if more sets of capacitors are kept in 90 degrees to each other, you can design 2 or 3 axis accelerometer over here. So this is your MEMS accelerometer. Then next one is your smart sensors. So smart sensors means what? These are the devices that they will be taking the input from a physical environment, then uses built-in compute resources to perform predefined function upon detection of specific input, then processes the data and before passing it on. Okay, so here smart sensors, what they will do without any human intervention, what they will take the input, they will process the input and they will give you the output. Okay, the sensor producing an electrical output when combined with interfacing electronic circuit, that is known as smart sensor. So electrical input we are giving, we are using their electronic circuit that will be processing the data, those are called as the smart sensors. It is the combination of both sensor and actuator. Smart sensor enable more accurate and automated collection of environmental data. They will be less noise, means they will less noise they will be, and they will be accurately recorded. Okay, a sensor that includes a microprocessor that conditions the signals before transmission to control network. These devices are used for monitoring and controlling mechanism in wide variety of environments, including smart grids, exploration, and great number of science applications. So what are the advantages? Minimum interconnection cables are required here, then high reliability it is, then high performance, easy to design and use and maintain. Okay, so you can see over there in the diagram, their input it will be took, then sensing elements will be there, that will be they will be sensing the inputs, then signal conditioning, that is the processing, then signal conditioning, signal processing, that it will be processing the data, and at last it will give the output, digital or quasi digital outputs they will be giving. Then what are the applications? First one, self calibration, that is adjust deviation of output of sensor from desired value. Then communication, that it broadcast information about its own status. Then for computation, allows one to obtain the average variance and standard deviation for set of measurements. The next one, multi-sensing. A single smart sensor can measure pressure, temperature, humidity, gas flow, infrared chemical reaction. Okay, then last one, cost effective. Less hardware and reduction of repetitive testing makes smart sensor cost effective. So these are all the applications of smart sensor. By this we'll be completing this 6th chapter. Thank you.